Hello, welcome to another episode of the Redeeming Productivity Show. This is the podcast that helps Christians get more done and get it done like Christians. I'm your host, Reagan Rose. Well, thanks for tuning in. We're here on episode 46, and today I want to be talking about how I plan my day. Kind of going through a step-by-step approach to what I do each morning to plan out the work that I'm going to do each day. And maybe we'll talk a little bit about why should you plan your day? What's important about that? Why would that matter? And I don't claim to be the end-all be-all expert on this. I just want to share what's working for me and maybe give you some ideas, because I know I am constantly listening to podcasts or having conversations with other people, or even reading books and picking up tips and things, what people do to kind of make sure they can make the most of their day. So I thought, I've tweaked some things recently about how I plan things each morning, and I thought it might be fun to share that. So let's do that. Before we do, just a quick reminder, please, if you like this podcast, if you love this podcast, if this podcast adds value to your life, please go ahead and give it a 5-star review on iTunes or wherever you listen to it. It helps people to find it, and more importantly, it helps my ego, which you know how fragile that is. And other than that, obviously you need to sign up for the newsletter. If you haven't signed up for the newsletter, I really have little understanding about how you're getting through each day without this thing. I send out a twice-a-week newsletter. On Wednesdays, I talk about that day's blog post and share a little kind of blurb at the beginning of it, just some exclusive content there, just things I'm thinking through as it relates to the Christian walk and personal productivity. And on Fridays, you'll hear about Reagan's Roundup, which is what do you call that? It's a roundup. It's a bunch of links. It's like 5 links from around the web that they'll have to do with things that I think will be helpful to you in your journey toward being a more productive Christian. So check those things out. Okay, let's talk about today's topic, how I plan my day. So I've kind of broken this up into, I guess we'll say it's like kind of 3 sections. So I want to talk about why you should plan your day. And then second, we'll talk about what are the elements of a good day plan. That section will be brief. And then finally, we're going to talk about how I am planning my days. And hopefully that will be the part that'll kind of give you some ideas about maybe how you can, take some of that and apply it to your own life. Okay, so why should you plan your day? Why should you each morning get up and decide in advance what you're going to do that day? That's what I'm talking about when I say plan your day. Because I think a lot of people don't do this. I talk to people about this and they're like, yeah, I don't do that. And to me, it's kind of, I've been doing this since college, and it's kind of odd to me that other people don't plan what they're going to do that day. Because what do you do? Then just whatever kind of comes across your plate, whatever happens to you, that's what you're going to do that day. So when you don't plan your day, everybody else is dictating your priorities. And that doesn't seem like a good way to get anywhere. And that's really kind of, I have a few reasons here why you should plan your day. And the first one has to do with that. It's, if you have goals, if you have any sort of goals for your life, professionally, spiritually, familially, I don't know how you say that, having to do with family. If you have any goals, you're never going to meet those goals if you don't take steps toward them each day, right? The author, that book, The Little Prince, it's like a children's book, I think. The author of that, Antoine de Saint-Exupéry, I'm not French, don't know how to say that name. It's a lot of words, a lot of vowels, a lot of accent marks. But anyway, this guy, Antoine, we'll call him, he said this great quote. He said, "A goal without a plan is just a wish." And that's one of the things I think a lot of us deal with is you have these kind of big ambitions. You say, hey, I want to have, a spiritually mature family, and I want to have a godly household. and that's my goal. But then you really don't have any plan how to get there. Or you might have vague ideas of things you might do to get there, but you don't do them each day, or you don't plan out how you're going to make progress towards that. Another thing, let me take this for example, for like a podcast, right? Say you wanted to start a podcast and you said, oh, that'd be awesome. I want to have a successful podcast. Well, if you never actually take steps towards producing a first episode or come up with a plan of how you're going to attack this thing, it's just going to be a wish, right? A goal without a plan is just a wish. And so as you plan your days, that's the time in which you execute on the goals you've created for yourself. So you should plan your days if you want to meet your goals. But for Christians, planning your day is more than just reaching the goals you've set for yourself. For the Christian, the act of planning your day, this is how I see it. It's a way of saying, this day is on loan to me from the Lord. He expects me to make a good return on it. So I wake up and I say, I have to steward this day well. I believe that the Lord has good for me to do today. He has opportunities for me to glorify him, and to love my neighbor, and to image forth Christ to the world through my actions and my attitudes and what I say. And so if that's true, I need to kind of make sure that I'm going to be intentional with how I spend my day to be a good steward of it. And then just practically, okay? Why should you plan your day? Well, when you plan your day ahead of time, you are more likely to get things done than if you didn't plan it. Let me try to say this a better way. In my experience, the days that I plan out ahead of time, even if I don't finish everything that I planned to do in that day, I get more of those things done than I would have if I had made no plan at all. And so just practically speaking, a great reason to plan out your day is because you will get more done. You will be more productive, which I think is what you want since you're listening to a podcast called Redeeming Productivity. So like I said in the beginning, I've been actively planning my days since college. It's gone through so many different iterations and changes over time, and I'm constantly trying new things and tweaking it. But I want to go through like a step-by-step of what I'm doing right now and hopefully give you some ideas. And if you have ideas, if you're listening to this, you're like, Reagan, you fool. You have missed out on something crucial. Or, hey, I have a tip for you that this is what I'm trying. Please let me know. I want to hear what you guys are doing. Email me at Reagan@redeemingproductivity.com. So that's Reagan, Reagan, spelled like the president, at redeemingproductivity.com. I would love to hear how you guys are planning your days. Okay, so that's the first part. Why should you plan your day? Well, you just should. Now, the second part, and this will be brief, is if you're going to plan a day, what are the elements of a good day plan, right? I mean, if you're going to come up with a system, what are kind of the requirements for that system, right? If you're building something, you have a requirements list. The car needs to go forward. It needs to reverse. The windows need to roll up and down. Well, it's the same thing with the systems of life and productivity. If you're going to try to set up for yourself a new system in life, like a morning plan time, that system should have requirements. What are you trying to do with it? Well, here's my breakdown. This is what I think make for the elements of a good day plan. A good plan for the day consists of tasks aligned with priorities mapped to time. I'll say it again. A good plan for the day consists of tasks aligned with priorities mapped to time. So what I mean by that is tasks. So what are you going to seek to accomplish today? And those should be tasks that are aligned with priorities that you have determined in advance. So those will flow out of your goals. And I'll explain how I do that right now. So tasks aligned to priorities and mapped to time. So you're saying, let me put it this way, a task. What am I going to do? Priorities. Why am I going to do it? And third, when am I going to do it? How am I going to map it to time? How am I going to block out when in my day I'm actually going to do this thing? Those are the three elements I think make up a good day plan. So here's how I am doing that currently. So how I'm planning my days, and this will be the the bulk of the episode here. Let's deal with that first element of goals and priorities. If I'm gonna map my tasks to priorities, I need to know what those are. So right now, with the help of my good friend James Parker, who was on episode 37, I'll link to that in the description. He has been helping me to document and clarify my goals and my priorities. So he's been walking me through some of the principles that are taught in the book, The One Thing by Gary Keller, which is I've mentioned here lots of times on the podcast. And if you want to hear a lot about it, James and I talk about it in episode 37. But James has been helping me with this to come up with a GPS and a 411. So I'll explain those briefly. We do talk about that in the episode. But so here's what we're doing. The GPS that James has helped me develop is a really simple one-page plan that lines up your goal with 3 priorities and 5 strategies for how you handle those 3 priorities. And if you can look it up. It's also called a 135 or a GPS. So if you just Google like the One Thing GPS or the One Thing 135, you'll find what this is. It's really simple, but it's super helpful because it gives you it forces you to write down what your big goal is. So what James has been walking me through is my one big goal for redeeming productivity. What am I trying to do with this? And then what are the 3 priorities or milestones that I need to reach that goal? And then what are the things under each of those priorities that I actually need to do? What are the strategies I can implement to start to execute on those priorities, right? So he's been helping me gain clarity on that. And then he's been helping me along with the GPS to do a 411, which is like this at a glance view of all the actions that I need to take and it's called a 411 because it deals with 4 weeks, 1 month, 1 year in order to accomplish your goals. So you're mapping those goals and priorities and stuff to time, like I talked about. So I'm not going to go too deep on that because we have talked about that before, and it's an awesome system. I have never used this before. James has been working with me on it. But the point is, even if you don't want to get that detailed, when you write down your goals and you kind of define very clearly what your priorities are, what you're trying to do, it does that. It clarifies things for you. It gives you those priorities that you can map your tasks for the day to. Otherwise, you start the day and you say, what should I do? Well, even if you're planning your day, but if you don't have priorities, you will still be just doing whatever other people's priorities are, right? Because you'll constantly let your time be ruled by urgent things. Like, oh, I got to return that email. I got to do this. I got to do this. I got to do this, which are important things to do, but you won't be deliberately making time for things that line up with your priorities because you haven't defined them. So even if you don't use the One Thing, I am a heavy advocate for writing down your goals and defining very clearly what it is you're trying to do. So if you have your goals, priorities, your strategies of where you're going and kind of what the big pieces of how you want to get there, then you'll have sharper clarity and be more effective at planning your day. So with this One Thing method, your GPS is kind of like very clearly what your goals are and how you're going to get there from a high level. And then the 411 is this at a glance view of what actions you need to take in time. So you'll take that stuff from the GPS and you'll map it out to 4 weeks, 1 month, 1 year that you're going to need to do to what things you need to do of that to accomplish that big goal. So I don't do this stuff during my daily planning. This is something I've done in advance, where I have a clear visual on what it is that I'm trying to do and the big milestones of how I'm going to get there and when. Okay. So the reason I'm telling you all this is because I have those goals and those priorities mapped out really, really specifically so that when I go to plan my day, I'm looking at this thing. I'm looking at this 411 document. And based on that, I'm saying, okay, what can I do today? What's the one thing I could do today to make some progress? on these different areas. So that's how it works with the one thing principles. But again, the tool is, I think there's a great tool set for goal planning, but the point is, no matter what tool you use, at the very least, you should have a clearly articulated goal or goals. And you should put that in front of yourself so that when you go to plan your day, you're thinking about the big goals, the big things you're trying to do. So here's what I do. Every Sunday, I look at that 411 document and I decide what things I'm going to do this week to make progress towards my monthly and yearly goal. This might go against the one thing system, but I actually have a 411 for work, for redeeming productivity, and for personal life. So I look at each of those things and kind of pick out what are the things I can do today that are going to help me make progress towards that. So that's the big first step, is have some sort of thing with your goals and how you're trying to get there. Now, here's the meat of it. How do I actually plan my day? Well, I spent so much time on that goal stuff and the priorities because it's absolutely critical to planning your day. Without it, you really don't know what to plan for, honestly. So what do? Well, let's go kind of chronologically. So I wake up, and the first thing I do is I kind of run through my morning routine. I've talked about this in previous episodes. I've written about morning routines a bunch on the blog. Just Google's your friend. I don't remember what episodes. So the first thing I do is go through my morning routine. So that's going to involve reading the Bible, spending time with the Lord in prayer, often journaling, and usually recreational reading, where, whatever book I'm in, I'll read, 10, 20 pages in it. And that's sort of my me time, and it gets my mind and my heart oriented to the things of the Lord. But the last thing I do in my morning routine is plan my day. And that's sort of the transition point to where I'm going to get to work, as it were. So what do I do when I plan my day? I open up that 411 document that I told you. And so that's going to tell me what's my yearly goal, my monthly goal, and my weekly goal. So I open that up and I read it from top to bottom. So at the top is my yearly goal, and then I have my monthly goal, and then I have the weekly goal. So I look at, and I do this every day. I mean, I remember what's on there, obviously, from Monday to Tuesday, but it's just a helpful exercise to keep it always salient in my mind what I'm trying to accomplish. And so I keep this document in Notion, where I keep everything, and it's just right there. It's actually the homepage of my Notion. So when I open it, I always see it. So next, after I've kind of stuck that into my mind, I will open up my calendar, and we'll try to get a sense of what meetings and appointments are on my plate for today. This is because what I'm going to do in a little bit is actually block out how I'm going to do my tasks. But I want to get a sense of what's happening today. And I do this well before I go to work in the morning in case there's something coming up that I need to plan for, or that I need to make sure I dress up for, something like that. So I always do this in the morning before I leave for work. Just FYI. So look at the calendar, see what's coming up. Then I start planning the tasks for the day based on my weekly goals from that 411. So I was doing this previously in a bullet journal notebook, like a physical notebook. But lately I've been using an app called Note Plan 2. I'll link to that as well. I really like this. It's sort of a calendar and a notebook app in one, and it is built around some of the principles of the bullet journal method. I have an article on the bullet journal written by Emily Maxim, which I will link to also below, where she explains what the bullet journal method is, if you're not familiar. But anyway, so I look at the calendar, and then I start planning out the tasks for the day. I'll migrate tasks from the previous day that were unfinished, and I will mark very clearly, I'll make it bold, what is the one most important task for that day. And so I will decide at the beginning of the day, if nothing else gets done, here's the one thing I want to get done today. And I have to get this done before I, call it quits for the day. And then the last thing I do is I plan when I'll do each thing on my list. So remember, My little working definition here for the elements of a good day plan is: a good plan for the day consists of tasks aligned with priorities mapped to time. So we have defined our priorities in advance. I've picked the tasks for the day, and now the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to map them to time. And I'm going to do this through what's called time blocking. And this is just simply where you decide in advance, looking at your calendar, looking at kind of the hours of the day. Okay, from 2 to 3, I'm going to do this task. It's that simple. I have found this to be one of the biggest impacts on getting more things done in a day, or having a better guarantee that I'll actually get the things that I plan to do done, is if I actually map them to specific time periods. So time blocking is really critical. I wrote an article on that too, which I guess I'll link to that as well. And you can do this on a calendar, to kind of keep this episode systems agnostic, as it were. When I was doing this on the bullet journal, or even if I just have a scrap piece of paper for time blocking, often I'll just write out the day by half hours. I'll do like 8, 8:30, 9, 9:30. And I'll just draw a little box and say, okay, from 8:30 to 9, I'm going to work on this task. So you could do it that simply, or if you're using, like I'm talking about using Note Plan too, it makes it really easy and it shows right on your calendar. That's one of the reasons I like it, is because it has kind of this time blocking feature. But anyway, so then what? Well, unless I have a meeting first thing in the morning, or some other sort of blockage that's going to prevent me from doing this, I will plan to do that most important task that I flagged the first thing in the morning. So if at all possible, I will. Sometimes it's dependent on other people, and so you can't do it, but that is just the best guarantee that it gets done. I am the most effective in the morning. I have the most focus, I have the most energy, the most willpower. So if I do it first, then it's like, sweet, my main thing is done for the day. The rest is just gravy. And it also kind of gives you this cool motivation boost where you're like, sweet, I just knocked out this thing that was this big hairy thing I needed to get done. And often the thing I need to get done is something that I didn't really want to do, And so you're feeling good because you're feeling accomplished. And then the rest of the stuff it becomes even easier after that. So then that's how I plan my day. Then I just start the day, right? So I've got everything mapped out. I've thought through my priorities. I've thought through my goals. I've set up tasks in accordance with those, and I've mapped those tasks to time. I've blocked them out. Well, now I just go and I execute on that, or try to. So throughout the day, I did this when I was using the bullet journal. I've been doing it now again with Note Plan, is I keep something called a work log. And it's a concept, I believe, from the bullet journal method. And it basically is just a way that keeps you on track. It's sort of like a diary for like work, which sounds a little lame, but it's awesome because what I'll do is I'll document conversations, and often I'll mark the time that things happened and just observations or whatever. And it's just a single place where, as I'm working throughout the day, I'm just constantly entering stuff. And this does a couple of things. One, it keeps me like really, really focused and on task, because I'm constantly thinking and articulating what's going on throughout my day. And this doesn't take a bunch of time. Sometimes it'll be just a couple of words. This isn't for public consumption. It's just for yourself. And I'll note that, this task I'm going to have to move because this happened, or this is how that meeting went, that kind of stuff. And it's just helpful. Keeps your mind in the game. And a lot of times things that I mark in here will get migrated over to something else. So if it's something I need to save, or maybe it's a bug report someone mentioned to me, I'll move that over to Confluence or Jira if it's work stuff, so that we can fix it in the software. Or if it's something personal or whatever, or goal related, I might move it over to Notion, like a prayer request or something. So yeah, that's what I'm doing throughout the day. And I'll also be adding new tasks. Things come up, obviously. So I have a place. I'll do this in Note Plan. I'll drop in new tasks, and I'll either put them on that day, or I'll put them toward the future, or I'll just drop them where they need to go. I'll be moving things around, checking things off, and just working. But that is really it. That's the simplicity of it. And at the end of the day, obviously I don't always finish everything I plan to do. I think I never do. And so the next morning when I go to plan that day, I will migrate over the unfinished stuff and work that into my plan for the new day. But that's really it. That is all that I am doing right now when I try to plan my days. I'll say it one more time. A good plan for the day consists of tasks aligned with priorities mapped to time. So that's working for me. I'm really liking it. I would love to hear from you guys again. If you have ideas, how do you plan your day? Please share it with me. I'd love to hear any tips from you. And that's, again, Reagan at redeemingproductivity.com. Drop me an email. And really, you can drop me an email about most anything. I'm always happy to talk. Even if you're like, hey, what do you think about this? Or, hey, check out this cool link. Send it over. I don't care. I'm always looking for more friends. So send it to me. But that is all I have for the day for this episode. I hope that something in here has been helpful to you, has benefited you in some way. It really is my goal with this podcast to try to help Christians to get more done with their lives for God's glory. And I want them to do it in a way that honors God, that's based on His word, and that is conscious of the fact that we are stewards of these lives for God. So keep pressing on. And again, if you're interested in the newsletter, you can sign up at redeemingproductivity.com/newsletter or in the link below. And I will see you again here next week. But until I do, remember this: in whatever you do, do it well and do it all to the glory of God.